When I was actually walking out here, somebody sent me a photo of a CNN headline about what happened in Minneapolis. And this is the headline. I'm just going to read it. Outrage after ICE officer kills U.S. citizen in Minneapolis. Well, that's one way to put it, and that is the way that many people in the corporate media have put this attack over the last 24 hours. And I say attack very, very intentionally, because this was an attack on federal law enforcement. This was an attack on law and order. This was an attack on the American people. The way that the media, by and large, has reported this story has been an absolute disgrace, and it puts our law enforcement officers at risk every single day. What that headline leaves out is the fact that that very ICE officer nearly had his life ended, dragged by a car 6 months ago, 33 stitches in his leg. So you think maybe he's a little bit sensitive about somebody ramming him with an automobile? What that headline leaves out is that that woman was there to interfere with a legitimate law enforcement operation in the United States of America. What that headline leaves out is that that woman is part of a broader left-wing network to attack, to dox, to assault, and to make it impossible for our ICE officers to do their job. If the media wants to tell the truth, they ought to tell the truth that a group of left-wing radicals have been working tirelessly, sometimes using domestic terror techniques to try to make it impossible for the President of the United States to do what the American people elected him to do, which is enforce our immigration laws. The President stands with ICE, I stand with ICE, we stand with all of our law enforcement officers. And part of that is recognizing that you people in the media, not everybody in this room, but many people in this room have been lying about this attack. She was trying to ram this guy with her car. He shot back. He defended himself. He's already been seriously wounded in law enforcement operations before, and everybody who's been repeating the lie that this is some innocent woman who was out for a drive in Minneapolis when a law enforcement officer shot at her, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, it's all kicking off in the U.S. right now, particularly in the state of Minnesota. And a warning, some viewers might find what I'm about to show you a little bit distressing. Earlier today, in a suburb of the capital city of Minneapolis, this woman, Renee Good, was shot while protesting against an Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency action. Now, ICE officials say she tried to ram an agent with her car, but her supporters, including the hard-left Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey, say otherwise, and they are now threatening a standoff with the Trump administration that could see the National Guard mobilized against federal law enforcement. Here to sort it all out is former Trump Chief of Staff and Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners, Mick Mulvaney. Mick, Happy New Year. Good to see you. This shooting is now the absolute top story coming out of the U.S., not just because of what happened, but because of the reaction. Already, protesters are attacking government buildings. Have a look at this. Mick, what's the latest on what's happening here?
Yeah, James, this is a very volatile situation. When the governor of Minnesota referenced the National Guard, what I think folks in Australia have to understand is that the president controls the ICE and other federal agencies, but typically there are exceptions, but governors control generally the National Guard. And if Tim Walz, the Democrat senator of Minnesota, is to call up the National Guard, you could, in theory, and maybe very much in practice, have a situation where there are federal law enforcement and state sort of quasi-military on the ground going against each other under certain circumstances. This is a very, very unusual and, again, volatile situation. It is a tragic sort of occurrence. And it's not really clear yet exactly what happened. It's going to be a long time, I think, before we know who's at fault. There's a lot to sort of go through, a lot of videos to review and so forth. But this is to say it's an incendiary type of situation is an understatement.
And of course, Minneapolis has that long history with this sort of protest. Of course, it's where the George Floyd protest kicked off when George Floyd was killed in 2020. But I'm glad you talked about this standoff here, because Governor Tim Walz, and we know him from that Kamala Harris, Tim Walz campaign, he is really trying to turn this into a standoff with the feds. Have a listen to this.
Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary.
But not only that, Mick, he's also trying to turn this possibly into a national movement. Here's what else he had to say.
If you're in Portland or you're in LA or you're in Chicago or you're wherever they're coming next, stand with us. Stand with us against this.
Look, Mick, this starts to sound, I hate to say it, but a little bit insurrectionary here.
Yeah, again, there's a lot of variables here, a lot of different dynamics at play. Keep in mind, Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota and the former Democrat nominee for vice president, just announced this week that he will no longer be standing for re-election for governor of Minnesota because of a scandal involving federal fraud in his state to the tunes of billions of dollars. That's hard to imagine, a governor not running for re-election because of a fraud scandal. That's just how large that particular issue is. And you cannot help but wonder whether or not Governor Walz is trying to figure out a way to sort of salvage his reputation. You leave the office under the cloud of scandal. What a great way for a progressive Democrat to try and salvage his reputation, but pick a fight with Donald Trump. So there's a lot of other sort of dynamics at play here. Again, that adds to all of the volatility.
Well, yeah, and including that volatility, too, I'm seeing reports that there are now organized protest movements. Antifa may be involved in trying to start some protest actions in Minnesota. It feels like in possibly trying to distract from his own political troubles and the Democrats' own political troubles, he is really playing with fire here.
He is calling up the National Guard. If he were to do that, again, he's not done it yet. I don't remember that happening in my adult lifetime, in my lifetime, where the federal government wants to do one thing and the governor wants to do the exact opposite. And in order to counterbalance that, brings up the state National Guard. I'm not sure how that even plays out, James. I mean, will the National Guard prevent the federal ICE agents from doing their job? Keep in mind, the federal ICE agents are there to enforce the immigrations and customs rules. That's what ICE stands for, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, so that they're enforcing federal law. And I don't remember a time in my lifetime when the state guard might be called up to prevent federal agents from enforcing federal law. It's very much sort of a new frontier here because we don't really know how to deal with this. And I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that things are able to calm down over the next couple of days. The DHS Secretary Kristi Noem gave what I thought was a really good press conference today. Her tone was calm and measured. And I think that's exactly what is called for right now. I think the last thing we need is folks looking to escalate this situation.
Well, on that question of escalation, where do you think this is going to go with the White House? Because I'm sure, Donald Trump, who's had a pretty good week here with the capture of Nicolas Maduro, with the seizure of that Russian tanker successfully, he's been looking pretty good. He's had quite a number of wins here, but this could throw him off track. Having worked for him, where do you think he is going to take this? Is he going to be up for taking up a fight with Tim Walz and escalating it further?
Oh, sure. I mean, that's what Donald Trump likes to do. He likes to fight with people. He likes to divide and conquer. That's sort of how he's won the two elections that he has won. It's his management style. And keep in mind, what is the administration on the other side of the coin? So we've already talked about Tim Walz and how he's handling this. What is the administration doing? Despite Kristi Noem's excellent press conference today, what was her message? That this was domestic terrorism, not ICE, by the way, but the protester who was shot to death was engaged in domestic terrorism. I'm not sure that's going to be a very easy thing to sell to the American people. In Charlottesville, when the guy drove his car into a crowd of people trying to kill people, that's domestic terrorism. When Charlie Kirk was assassinated, that's domestic terrorism. I'm not sure an ordinary American would watch these videos and say that this was domestic terrorism. Yes, the woman apparently hit an ICE agent with her car as she was apparently trying to get away. And it seems like at first blush so far that the agent was legally justified in what he did. That being said, I don't think it's going to rise to the level where most people think the woman was engaged in domestic terrorism against federal agents as part of this. So it's the administration is walking a sort of a fine line as well at the same time.
Mick Mulvaney, we're going to have to leave it there, but thank you so much for walking us through it. This is an absolutely fascinating and, as you say, really explosive situation. Mick Mulvaney, thanks so much.
Thanks, James.